Things people with depression want you to know. Depression is not a choice, but many of us are struggling with this in this life. They who suffer from clinical depression carry with them a social stigma. Unfortunately, it exacerbates the serious problems they deal with on a daily basis. The disease is misunderstood by the general public. People with depression are shunned or at least treated differently from other people. But it's very essential to know what people with depression want you to know. It's not impossible that our loved ones may experience this disease. So you need to equip yourself to help people you care about that suffer from the disease. In this video, you will know what people with depression want you to know, so you will not wrong perception about them. 1. They may or may not take meds. It's important to know whether your depression is clinically diagnosed or only based on your assumption. However, they who are diagnosed with clinical depression don't necessarily take medication for their symptoms. Even if they do, they will not magically get happy after popping the pills. They are not also faking to get access to drugs. But because of the stigma that people offset depression to take the drugs, many people who suffer from this choose not to take the medication. Unfortunately, this can be detrimental to their health because they truly need medication to help them. They stopped taking it because society views it as the pill popping. 2. They don't mean to ditch you. Have you ever found friends or someone you care about often isolate themselves from family and friends? They withdraw themselves from crowded, and choose to be solitude more often. Unfortunately, many people get the wrong idea, by thinking that the person suffering is actively trying to shut everyone else out of their lives. In fact, the reason why they distance themselves from others is because they don't want to burden others with their problems. Many people who suffer from depression consciously know that they can drain others' energy. That's why they withdraw themselves and decide not to attend a party. It doesn't mean they want to ditch you. But you can do something for them and do greater effort to be there to get this through. 3. They're not faking it. Depression is misunderstood by the general public, and it's so sad. It's very difficult for some people to believe that someone is suffering from depression because if people can show happiness and other positive emotions instead of sadness. But don't you know that when a depressed people musters up the courage to go out with loved ones, they're sometimes excellent to snap out of it. They also can tell joke and laugh with group of people for a few hours. It seems nothing is wrong with them and their life. The symptoms of depression can come in certain moments. They can enjoy their life at times, but then anxiety and despair rear their ugly heads later on. However, it does not mean that they are faking it, or being too dramatic about it. 4. They know they're too much to deal with. Like what I mentioned earlier, that people who suffer from depression don't want to burden other people with their problems. They consciously understand that at times, they can be the Debbie Downers, but they don't want to make other people down. They also realize that their mood can fluctuate at times and influence others. There are too many things they need to deal with. Thus, they choose to stay at home alone in long period instead of spending time with you. However, they still need the understanding and compassionate than they've ever been before. 5. Being depressed isn't the same as suffering from clinical depression. You also need to underline that being depressed isn't not the same with the clinical depression. Also, many people usually throw around the term depressed with sad or something similar. Sadness is the natural feeling of human as the reaction when something happens in the wrong way from our expectation. For example, when your pet dies, you will be sad for a while. But the feeling will not debilitate and keep you from living your daily life. Otherwise, clinical depression is more than what we see. Even without any external stimuli, someone with depression may feel extreme sadness. It's so hard to defeat and sometimes no reason for someone to be down. Since people with depression can't point out the reason why they feel low, it's so hard to tackle the issue. 6. Don't be soft with us. It is very important to be there with someone you care about and accompany them to get through their depression. But at the same time, they also don't expect you to be soft with them. You need to be careful not to offend them, but feeling as if you need to walk on eggshells around them is also not a good step. You shouldn't too soft with them or it will make them less comfortable. Remember, clinical depression isn't so much a response to external factors as it is a manifestation of the mind and chemical imbalance. The best thing you can do for a friend suffering from depression is to simply be the friend you've always been to them. 7. People with depression aren't weak. It's also very important to know that depressed people are not weak. Since the term being depressed is misunderstood that it's the sign of weakness, then we often listen to people who say that I was sad last week, too. But I got over it pretty quickly, so they assume that people with depression are too weak. However, there is a saying about people with depression that they have been strong for far too long. In other words, they have been struggling with their issues for incredibly long time, and then they recently hit breaking point at which they needed to find help. They are not weak as people assume, they are the strongest member of the society. 8. It's not about getting over it, but getting through it. Many people also have the misconception that depressed people simply need to get over it. It's really hard to pinpoint the source of the problem. When you say you want to get over something, it means that you let it go and then moved on with your life. However, clinical depression is more complex than that. People with depression must be able to get through it, they can't deny it and ignore it, or simply letting it go. You need to face it head on and work through it. The last but not least, you also need to know that depression is not about getting over it, but getting through it. For someone who is struggling the clinical depression with every bit of willpower they have shows that how strong that person is. By knowing the things I have mentioned in this video, hopefully we can provide a better environment for the people we care about, especially for them who are suffering from depression. Then we will have better society and environment for everyone.